Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're at the Precision Express Car Wash in Lindale, Texas, and what we're going to do today is we're going to replace the rotors and the pads on a 2006 BMW 335i. Shouldn't be too difficult of a process. Really what we're going to do, we're going to knock the calipers loose on the backside. We're going to pull this pin out here that'll let the rotor come off. Move the caliper out of the way, go ahead and put the new rotor on, and then we're probably going to try to clean up the calipers a little bit, paint them so they look a little bit nicer, so that when this car goes to its new owner, it's going to be pretty for them. So anyway, glad you're here. Let's go ahead and dive into this thing. All right, so what we're going to start on is back here on the back side. I'll show you the plastic, the dust cover, when I pull it off of there. It's just a little plastic dust cover, and it goes over the back side of the pin that the brake caliper slide on. When you push on the pedal, the fluid goes in the back side of the caliper, and that fluid pressurizes the piston, and the brake caliper actually slides on these pins back and forth, and so the pressure of that piston pushing out on the back side pad pulls the front side pad in. So it's kind of how that whole thing works. But this is the little dust cover that goes over that. And then it takes a, what size is that one? It's a 7mm Allen. And so, of course, it's a German car, so everything is metric. So if you don't know the metric system, fake it till you make it. So there are two dust covers. Pretty easy to pop off. So there's the second one. And we're going to try to do this first one just to kind of knock them loose. That one's loose. See if we can get this in here for the second one. All right, they're both loose. I want to take a screwdriver and kind of gently pry on these pads. Make sure this caliper will move right, which it is. I'm not so worried about prying against the surface of this rotor since we're going to replace them. If it's a rotor that you're just doing a pad swap on, be real careful when you pry against it, because you don't want to score that rotor and create something that's going to tear up your brand new brake pads that you're putting on there. All right, I think we got that apart. So that part of it's pretty easy. I'm going to pop the clip off. With brake work, it's always a good idea to do one at a time. And so that way, once you get something pulled apart and you're not exactly sure how it goes back together, then you can look at the other one to make sure. Come on. There it is. And the kit does have new clips, so don't worry about those. So that should be there. We're going to go ahead and pull the slider pin all the way out. And I'll try to get some footage back in there a little bit better too. So, and there, that's the slider. That's where the Allen goes in. It's threaded on that end. Basically, the caliper slides on that. You can see that there's a little bit of, let me get it up kind of close to so you can see. This stuff that's on here, we'll need to clean that off. Probably be able to just use a paper towel or something. They say on these ones, try not to handle them, the calipers or the rotors that much, because you don't want to use brake parts cleaner on these when you put them back on because of the coating that's on them. So anyway, there's the one pin. We're going to go ahead and take the other pin out, and then we'll show you how this caliper goes together. Okay, I've gone ahead and pulled that bracket off, so it's out of the way. Let's see, I'm not sure so I can show the bracket. And it mounts backside back here. It's got two bolts on the backside that go into it, and it's threaded on the inside. This bolts through, and it kind of clamps it in place. And so that's where that bracket sits. Your caliper sits over the top of that bracket with the pads in between, and when you push the pedals, it squeezes them together like that. So kind of wanted to update on that. That's where we're at with that one. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take out this pin right here, and that pin right there will allow the rotor to come off. And so for that one, it is a, let's see here, a 6mm. So now let's see if I didn't screw this up by not tightening it, clamping it down. That's really pretty easy. And that's that. The pin just kind of, it's got a part that it rides on there that locks in, and it centers the brake rotor so that it stays where it's supposed to stay. So really pretty simple. I'll leave that right there. All right, that's not going to want to come off of there, so we're going to probably have to get a little bit of persuasion for that. So we'll be right back. Okay, so it didn't take a whole lot. I just gave it a smack, and off it comes. That's the old one. And I'm going to try not to touch the brake surface as much as possible. But we want to line it up, and so line it up so that that pin, the hole for that pin, because there's not another spot for it, so it all lines up that way. Line that up so that it's all up there tight. Go ahead and start that pin back in. And really, that's about it for that. The new rotor is on. We'll snug it down a little bit. Once the wheel goes back on and the lug studs go in, it holds it all in there anyway. This is more of a locating pin than anything, so just make sure it's in there, that it's snug, so that it's not going to back out, but that's that. And really, I know it seems pretty simple, because it is. The rear brakes don't have the wear sensor. The front ones do, and so when we do the front brakes, we'll talk a little bit about that. But as far as how these brakes come apart and go back together, there you have it. It's pretty simple. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up, and then we'll work on the next ones and figure out how we're going to close this thing out. But hopefully that was something that'll give you an idea on how to do this. Yeah, that's what I do. I promise you this. I'll go back and get some more of footage of the backside so you can see how that part comes apart. It's really not that difficult to do. So anyway, more to follow. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm showing you this is the front caliper. I've turned the wheel so that this side of the caliper sticks out, so hopefully you can see it best. But this is where the Allen socket goes into that slider pin. There's one there, and there's the other one is down here. Hopefully you can see that. It's really kind of tight, and my goal is to show you what's going on with them. Once we get these broken loose, the caliper will pretty much be loose, and then this bolt right here and the other one, it's hidden behind the caliper underneath, those are what hold the bracket on. And so what we're going to do is knock these loose, clean this stuff up before we pull it apart, because I want to pull this clip off the outside, and we want to clean the caliper up a little bit, and we're going to respray that so that it looks a little bit nicer before it goes back together. And get that in there. Okay, we got that one. Let's go ahead and knock the bottom one loose. It's right there. Ooh, that bottom one was already loose. The bottom pin wasn't even snug down. There we are. There's that pin is out, that pin is out. And so now the whole caliper is loose and ready to come off. Ish. Oh, there goes the clip, and off comes the caliper. So we're going to sit that up there for now. Now, here's where one of the pads comes out. These are the bracket bolts right here that I was talking about. But what we're going to do right now is we're just going to loosely put the caliper back together so that we can go ahead and paint it. Let me move the camera. a little bit so we can see a little bit better. But we're going to paint the, basically as what we can see, leaving the old rotor on right now so that if we get overspray or something like that, it's not going to matter because it's all going to be kind of that way. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this other pad out, pop the caliper kind of back on loosely, and go from there. All right, so I opened the box up, the brakes, they come in the package. Go ahead and rip those open. And your pads only go in one way. So when they come out of the package, you've got one that's the flat, and you've got one with the clips on the back. The clips actually pop into the caliper. There's a little bit of a curve to them. Picture it in your mind how that curve is it matches up with the curve of the rotor. And so this is your outside pad, and so it'll sit on the rotor just like that inside the caliper. And so what I want to do is kind of show you how this pad clips in inside the cup in here. It just kind of snaps in there. A little bit tight, that's okay. Just got to make sure you get it into the hole all the way. That's what she said. Okay, it's not wanting to go in there quite right. These things are being brand new. They can be a little bit snug to get those clips in there. See how much of that glove is left in there when I'm done. But anyway, there it is now. It's pushed all the way in there. We're going to actually have to see this, the piston is not pushed all the way back in there. I'm going to pull this pad back out, and then we're going to go ahead and get that piston seated all the way back in there, and then put that pad back in so that it'll go onto the bracket and onto the caliper the way it should, because right now it ain't going to fit. So let's do that. I'll be back. Okay, so I went ahead and used the C-clamp, tightened it down on the back side, and since I've only got two hands, kind of couldn't do the whole thing. Now what it did was it forced this cup all the way back in, and so now we'll put the pad back in there. It locks in. Now we'll take the outer pad, it sets in, and then it slides back on there just like so. What we're going to do now is take the pins, we're going to lube them up, but I need to put this clip back on there first. And now I got to remember how it goes on there. And it goes something like this. This is kind of one of them things you got to figure out, just like so. We'll get that in there. We got some caliper grease. We're going to put that on the pins, slide those pins back in. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need a whole bunch. Give that a little bit of a coating. And so now what I'm doing is putting the slide back in. Hopefully. I'm gonna have to adjust the caliper around just a little bit. And we grease the slide up so that when the caliper moves back and forth, it does that. Now we just started it up kind of loose. Gonna put the other pin in. So we get them both started. And then we'll tighten them down once they're both started. Okay, the bottom one is tight. Now we're tightening up the top one the rest of the way. That's it, it's all back together. Really pretty easy. The big thing is making sure you're not getting any grease or anything else on there, because you don't want to use brake cleaner on there. Keep the pads as clean as you can when you're putting them back together. And that was where having that clip was, what I said in the beginning is only do one side at a time. That way if you need a reference, you can go back to it and look at how it goes back together. So it made it that much easier to be able to see what was going on with it. But really pretty simple. We'll torque these down to the proper spec and then put this all back together. Really the big difference with the back versus the front is the pad wear sensor. We do have the sensors to replace those when we do that, and we'll show that on camera once we get to that point with it, once we get the front all pulled back together. So other than that, there we are, and we'll update with more as we go along if there's something that needs to be added to this video. All right, as you can see, we moved back to the front, and what I'm going to cover in this part of it is the brake wear sensor. And the brake wear sensor is this line right here. It comes down into the front side here. When you replace these, always replace these, because that clip, when you go to pull it out of there, is going to break. And what it is, there's a thing that compresses down in there as the brake wears. It gets down to the point where it makes contact, and once it makes contact, then it gives you the idiot light on the dash that tells you that you need to replace your brakes. And so that's what that's for. That's where it is. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to unclip it from that little clip there. It runs around the top side. There is another little bracket here, but let me open this up, see if I can get this thing opened up so we can get to the plug. The little door opens up, and the one that we want is the top one. So we'll pop it out of there. Comes out of there. Okay, and there we go. Should be coming apart now, hopefully. Yep, there it is. And it's just the two little pins that are in there. However, it routes around. We'll pull that out. And then when we pull the caliper off, it's all going to be tied together. This is the side with the clip in it. This is the side that'll be back here. And so that's going to be facing that way. The wear sensor will come out of there, and that's it. Really a pretty simple process. Just to remember how it comes apart. And as always, keep the other side together until you're ready to do that, so you've got a point of reference. But there it is. Let's pull this thing apart. Set that one right up there. Pull that out of there. There it is. So now we have that as a way to show you how that clips together. Pull the new one out of the bag. And then use the old one as a reference. There's the new pad. And that's it. It just all clips back together. And so I'm going to leave this sitting off to the side because we're going to go ahead and pull this rotor off, put the new rotor on the front. Still have to pull this bracket off to get it out of the way, and then we'll show you what it looks like when it's all back together. Okay, so what I actually had to do is there's a little bit of a shoulder in here. I had to get the rotor up onto the shoulder before that locating pin would go in there, right? And once that was in there, it seated down pretty good. So there's where we're at with that. What we want to do now is go ahead and put this bracket back on for the caliper. And I think we can kind of see it this time. It goes here. Get that bolt started from the back side there. The other bolt. I know, don't yell at me for having that brake caliper hanging like that. I don't like it either. Let me do this. Get it back up here. So it's sitting up there. Make sure that we get it in the way, because when it was hanging down there out of the way, it was just not in the way enough. Oops. I'm just going to snug them real quick. That should be plenty snug. Now, as we said before, we want that in there. There's the curve that way. It's going to go in there like so. We'll take that plug, route it up through there. So that's going to sit in there like so. That one is in there. And then here's our new pad. It's right there. So I'm going to sit this over the rotor, and then we're going to grab the new clip. Okay, so we went ahead and put, of course, the rotors on, put the clip in, pads in, the pad is all tightened down, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to route this thing back up. Now the previous brake job was done, they used the dust cover for the bleed valve to hold that in place. So what I'm going to do is do the same thing. Get that down out of the way. Run this up through here like the last one was. Pull it through here. And there are little spots for that to clip in. And so that's what we're going to do with that, wherever it clips in. We'll make sure that we get it in there enough that we keep this out of the way. Okay, so that's there. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to put this dude back together like so. Pop that back in there, because it's got a little thing that it clips into right there. Then we close the door on it. And there we go. And so that's it. That's all back together. We'll do a quick once over on it, make sure everything is tight. All the fasteners are torqued down, and that should be that. And so I don't think we're going to go ahead and show the other side on camera. We've done the back, we've done the front, we've done the sensor. It's all pretty much the same. Well, it is the same, it's just on the opposite side. But that way you can see kind of how this comes apart, how it goes back together. And if you have questions, by all means, put them in the comments down below and ask me what's what. And I'll do my best to get you an answer on that. So really pretty easy process. We went a little bit further in by painting the calipers and cleaning it all up, and so it's going to look really nice when the car is back on the road. All right, so there we have it. We've done the back brakes, we've done the front brakes, we did the pad wear sensor. It's all installed, it's all good. Everything is tightened down. Just a matter of putting the wheels back on it. We'll do the other side brakes, and then the car will be done as far as that goes. It's really a pretty simple process. Pay attention to what you're doing. Do one part at a time so that you don't have don't lose your reference. And as always, YouTube's out there, so if you do need to reference off of somebody, you can find your car most likely out there. I know this is a BMW. Most car braking systems are pretty similar. This one's got the discs up front and the discs in the back. Disc brakes are super easy to work on. They just take a little bit of time and patience, and to make sure you have the right tools, because you always want to have a torque wrench on hand, and you want to have that available because some things need to be torqued down to the proper specs. And so you can look those up, make sure you get them down there right. New pads go with new rotors. You can put new pads with old rotors if the old rotors aren't worn too bad. But if they're, it's always best if you can afford it, buy the new rotors, buy the new pads as a kit, put it all together, clean it all up so everything is new, because the single most important piece of equipment on your car is the brakes. It doesn't matter how fast it goes if you can't stop it when you get there. So anyway, hey, thanks for watching Yellow Jacket Garage. I always appreciate it. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. And you know, it helps my channel grow, and I need all the help I can get. So I don't know if you look at those subscriber numbers, I'm at like 250. So hey, like I say before, I'm not in this to get rich. I'm in it to have fun. So thanks for being here. I'm glad you're with me, and we'll see you on down the road.